Yeah, I do want to apologize though, man. Just pushing from Wednesday to Thursday, from Thursday to Friday, and here we are finally. Which leads me to record all night long.
Yeah.
So I got 3 shows now. I hear you're going to be on one of them, Tim.
Yeah. I'll be on the homies at 8 o'clock. Your
So you're
guys'
gonna
time.
be riding with me for a little bit.
Yeah. I'll be with
Uh
you.
yeah, Justin, I appreciate you guys working this into the schedule, moving it around. We actually we had a food show at Cleveland, Ohio, and went really really well, man. Those things are a lot of work, but a lot
It
of fun.
sounds like it.
A
Yeah,
lot
it
of
sounds
fun.
like it. I mean, I know that work always comes in the way with everything, but with all three of us for that matter. But yeah, when you say like, hey, look, work is kicking my behind, I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, no, I get it, man.
it had me in the
I get
blender.
it.
Had me in the
Yeah.
blender. But hey, man, without further ado, let's get into this show. Welcome, Cincinnati Bengals and NFL football fans. You are tuned in to Running Through the Jungle. I'm your host, Brandon Herriott, with your host, Justin Lacey and Tim Lyons. What's up, fellas?
What
Hey,
up?
what's
What up?
going on, fellas? Man, doing pretty good out here.
We appreciate you guys tuning in and rocking with us with this weird off season schedule. We've had a few days here and there go off kilter a little bit, and it's mostly my fault. I'll take the blame for that. But we appreciate you guys tuning in, rocking with us. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up, that like, that subscribe, hit that share button, share us with a friend, tell a Bengals friend about us. We appreciate you guys. But let's just get right into some NFL news. I think the biggest news we got right now has to be that Stefon Diggs signing.
Mhm.
Buffalo sending him to Houston Texans for a second round next year. And I see that they're sending conditional picks back. So they're actually not getting just a second. They're getting a second, but they're also getting Stefon Diggs and what, like a sixth or a seventh or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, Conditional to a fifth, or I don't remember exactly how it went, but I mean, Buffalo's taking a hit on the cap this year just to get rid of them. Justin, what's your thoughts on this one, man?
So sorry about that. I was just on a little quick mute, real quick. So here's my thoughts about Stefon Diggs getting traded. I think that it was somewhat overdue, a little bit. I think that there was a lot of buzz that was going on between Stefon, Josh Allen in the front office, and that it was kind of brewing for a little bit, for about a year, a little over a year now. You can make the argument that most Bengal fans will say since the divisional playoff loss to us in 22, that's probably what was the tailspin that started it. They just got their ass beat so bad in their own house that they had all the making set up, and Josh Allen just laid a flat out egg in that game. And Stephon Diggs, he didn't really do anything in that game neither. But then the 23 season kicked off, and the first half of the season, like I think like the first 9 games, Stephon Diggs looked like he was just all worldly again, like he usually is, a Pro Bowl caliber guy, catching a ton of touchdowns and whatnot. But then in the back half of the season, you start to see things start to shift a bit, as whereas like it just felt like that the offense was not really gearing into his favor. Is that he was like an insurance policy. He's there if you need him, but he's not really needed. And that their focus more or less shifted to Dalton Kincaid and then the other surplus of receivers they had that's like, well, I want to call them surplus, supplemental receivers, like the supporting cast. And it just felt like that Stefon Diggs wasn't even really a part of the offense anymore. And I mean, he was still there, but he wasn't. And then the
Became more of a
playoff loss.
supporting actor. Yeah.
Yes, he took the back seat to the other guys, and I just feel like that they was just making it the Josh Allen show, and it really just kind of, even though they won games, it didn't feel like that they took it like they dominated those wins. It just felt like that they had to grind it out all the way through the divisional playoff round, which they should have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs that time around. But Stefon Diggs made a crucial drop on a laser deep pass that Josh Allen threw, and it just felt like that was the end of it right then and there. I mean, it was heartbreaking sort of to see it like the game end for them in that way. But I say all that because I feel like that we were building to this moment, and I just felt like watching the Bills up close a little bit more than your prototypical Bengals fan would. It just seemed to me that they're going to trade Steph to the offseason in the offseason. I don't know where, but I feel like that they're going to trade him. And it's good for Houston. Houston gets a Class A top tier wide receiver seems like for a year. Because also another interesting thing that I did hear is that the Houston Texans waived the last 3 years of his contract, so that way he can enter the free agency next offseason. So for him to get a nice little payday as well too. So it's a win for Houston. It seemed like it's a go in all in move because they had an explosive year with C.J. Stroud as a rookie year. He overachieved expectations, shall I say. But at the end of the day, man, with all the people that's talking about the Buffalo Bills and just in shambles now because what's happening with this trade, I'm not really buying into that. I think that this was a parting of ways that needed to come about for some time now. And just because it doesn't look good happening right now, I just feel like that they were just ready to move on. That's my overall take of it.
Yeah, I was, you touched on something there that really surprised me. I was surprised that just for a second rounder for next season, not even this season, when we have a wide receiver rich draft,
Mm-hmm.
that they were willing to trade him to a AFC playoff team. That's what really kind of caught me off guard. I was like, I don't know if I'd like that. I mean, if Bengals traded T. Higgins, let's just say, because I know a lot of people have been making this analysis now that Stefon's out there. But if they would have traded him like T to the Texans, I'd have been furious, absolutely furious. Tim, what's your take on it? Is this just another diva wide receiver needing to move on, or you got a different spin on it?
No, that's pretty much what it's been because Stefon Diggs, he hasn't been happy for the last 2 years. It just seemed like it was just a drama story going on. It's like kind of reminds me of the whole OBJ thing when he was with with Cleveland. It was just drama. Good for the Texans. They got pretty much three number one wide receivers out there now with Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Stefon Diggs now. On paper the Bills look like crap. They got two good tight ends, but wide receiver wise, they don't have anybody now. Gabe Davis signed went free agency and signed away. Then with this Diggs trade, I think the Bills only have like $4 million in cap space left. So
yeah, they don't have much. I mean, they're eating this, but they actually went negative. They lost cap space on this move. They lost $3.5 million of cap space, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It was coming. Who knew it was going to be traded to the to the Texans. Like you said, if I was the Bills, or maybe the Texans were the only one that gave them the offer of the Diggs trade. But if I was the Bills, I would not have traded them to anybody in the AFC. Period. Just like like you just said with T. Higgins, we ain't trading T. Higgins to an AFC team. And if we are, we're sending them to like a basement AFC team. There ain't no way in hell. Now the Texans are looking like, they could be serious contenders next year.
I mean, the idea of C.J. Stroud after the season he had last year, which he would have broke the rookie passing yards.
Oh, no doubt.
He wouldn't have had that concussion, was out 2 games.
Right.
But you look at him now with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and now Stefon Diggs. I mean, that's really formidable as far as pass catchers out there. And
they got Dalton. Don't they have Dalton Schultz as well?
Yeah, they re-signed Dalton Schultz.
They got Dalton Schultz. They got Joe Mixon. They're going to be a good looking team.
Which hold on. No, I'm glad you brought up Joe Mixon because now it seems like the national pundit and narrative is that for the Texans they got all these explosive elements, and Joe Mixon just seems to quite be posted up everywhere now as they're getting an all-star running back in Joe Mixon. But I recall when the Bengals had him, people were talking about he fell off a cliff and that
Yep.
that he was just washed up and he was done. That stuff is getting annoying to me. And I'm really
Yeah.
getting tired of having to defend. I mean, I defended Joe Mixon for a lot. And I always obviously saw us as Bengal fans, we saw that look, man, this probably needs to be a separation, go on, move, go different ways or whatever. But it just really just gets under my skin when the perception just changes so quickly for a player now that they're no longer on the Bengals,
Well,
man. It's
I
so
still
terrible.
think that, and I'm going to catch a lot of guff for saying this, but I still think Joe Mixon's going to share a lot of that backfield with Dameon Pierce.
Oh yeah.
I
Definitely.
thought if Dameon Pierce doesn't get hurt last year, I thought he was poised to have about a 1,400 yard season.
Mhm.
So I'm interested in seeing that. But you look at like their backup wide receivers on their depth chart right now are John Mechie, Noah Brown, and Robert Woods.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Noah Brown, we know a lot about too.
yeah. So I mean that they got some pretty good wide receivers out there, pass catchers. Um, good young team. Stefon Diggs is going into a season where he's 31. Historically, that's the drop off for
Mhm.
wide receivers. I don't think it was a bad idea at all for Buffalo to get off of him. I'm surprised they didn't get. I would rather have a third round draft choice this year than a second next year. That's just the
Right.
way I am.
And they're eating the rest of that contract up too. Buffalo
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So there's
Yeah.
some oddities to it. I but back to the thing where people are now saying, is this what the market is for T. Higgins and all that kind of stuff? Because Stefon Diggs is 31. I think that makes a huge difference in what the market is. Now maybe the market is a second. If the market's just a second for T. Higgins, well, let's try to win a chip this year and say goodbye. You know what I mean? I hate
Mhm.
not getting more draft picks and more things out of it. But what are you going to do at this point in time? I don't know if maybe we do what was it? I call it the tag light, the non-exclusive tag where someone can sign them and then we
Mhm.
get compensated for it. Maybe we do that next year. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well,
I mean, go ahead, Tim. You got
like the thing is for me is it all depends on what kind of year T. Higgins has next year. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to have 1,000 yards? Um, things could play out totally different for T next year. It all depends on what's coming up in 2024. I know he's a caliber. Don't get me wrong. I like T. Higgins. I've always liked T. Higgins. He's a big guy.
yeah.
He's 6'4". He's got a little bit of speed on him. He can do
The catch he
things.
made against the Vikings last year might have
Yeah,
been it might be one of my favorite catches of the year by far.
right. But the thing is we got to see what's going to happen next year. Next year, you know, this year he could have the same season he had this year. It was kind of like, is he going to be healthy? Soft tissue's been one of our biggest worries. Soft tissue
He
injuries are not easy just to go.
Listen,
They don't
he
just go
is
away.
working with an expert in the field. The guy that worked with uh oh
Aaron Rodgers.
yeah. No, he worked with basketball player. Uh Wade. Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade.
So they got the trainer that worked with Dwayne Wade when he was having ankle problems and calf problems and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's working with him now, trying to do more plyometrics and stuff along that line.
Yeah.
Which, if nothing else, is great that he sees. He's acknowledged that there's an issue, and
Mm-hmm.
he's trying to fix it, which is great.
Right.
Justin, what do you think about his value and what we got going on here?
Well, I'll start here and I'll work backwards. It's regarding the narrative about T. Higgins being injury prone. I don't think he's injury prone. I think that when you play the game at the wide receiver position, or just any position for that matter, you are going to be prone to have some sort of injury or ailment, lack thereof. For T. Higgins, he's had a couple of hamstrings, bother him here and there, but nothing that was very concrete and evident that he was going to miss an extended amount of time. Um, he's not John Ross, okay? Put it that way. I mean, and I hate keep picking on a guy like a John Ross, but I mean, the proof was in the pudding when he ran his 4.22 speed. He injured his hamstring right there. He caught a touchdown pass against the Falcons in 2018 and injured himself, and then had not played the rest of the game. I remember all of these things regarding John Ross. So excuse me that I have to use him as a referencing punching bag for injury prones when it comes to the wide receivers that the
That
Well,
Bengals
was
you have to
had.
apologize to me about that one. That one made me sick.
But T. Higgins is just not that. T. Higgins is a guy that even if he does, come up limping or whatnot, you already know you're going to have those fans like, oh, here we go. This is why we haven't signed. No, he deserves a contract. He deserves a contract extension. T. Higgins is also one of those guys that is going to fight and claw his way back onto the field, a lot like Tyler Boyd. They both play with injuries, and that's what we loved about him. And I think that that really just goes unnoticed quite often within the fan base because of what he's dealing with this contract situation. And last season, even when he was going through that injury portion of last season, he still fought his way to come back on the field playing with busted ribs and here and there and stuff. That was a part of his drop off in his play, but it doesn't really acquiesce that that's him as a total player of it itself. It really just shows that he's mentally tough and that eventually it's going to break his way. And when he's healthy, he can be really explosive. And that's what we love him for. And that's why I feel like his value is still up there because if he was on again, it's kind of like what I said earlier about the whole Mixon narrative about now that he's on a different team. If T. Higgins was on another team, they will be marketing the living hell out of that, talking about he is a top 10 wide receiver and all this and that. Where when he plays for the Bengals, they wasn't saying that already. They would just call him like, they were saying all these things. But he does have to prove it and show himself. And I think the Bengals, as much as we want to get like a second or third round pick value of it, I think right now at this point in time, playing on the tag is the right move, because if you were to go into the season and he does perform well and you don't end up re-signing him, he goes to another team. Guess what? You're just going to get a third round pick comp pick for that anyways going into next year. So it
Depending
is
on who you resign. Like
exactly
if we go
true.
out and sign other people, that might go away. So,
Right.
but no, it does give us some sort of compensation. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, if it's not going to yield a high enough draft value, because at this point, T. Higgins also have to have things on his rap sheet. So like he's made Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
He has to have built those accolades, now that he's going into his fifth season in the NFL. Like if he had Jamar Chase's resume, then yes, he would yield some really high surplus value, like a couple of picks this year, a few picks next year, kind of like a Tyreek Hill type of haul. But he's not getting that kind of haul. And you've seen guys like Stefon Diggs, it just kind of throws you back to it was like, even though T. Higgins is yet to enter his second contract, it kind of just gives a nice little reminder that, wherever we thought the trade market was for this receiver or these receivers in right now, and that it's just not there, especially now you got a rich receiver class coming up.
That's it. That's the other thing. So a couple things there to touch on. One, I don't think it really, I think T. Higgins' value is still a little bit more than Stefon Diggs because Stefon Diggs is 31. His
All right.
best seasons are behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
He just turned 25. His best seasons are in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think that does that mean Stefon Diggs is not going to be effective in Houston? No, I expect him to have a good year. Yeah, I think he'll get 1,200 yards or something. Somewhere in that neighborhood. I think he'll have a good year. Just because of the offense he's playing with and CJ Stroud and how well they looked last year. But I still think that T has more value. And if that's not going to be met this year, and I don't think it's going to be a situation where we're going to I don't foresee us trading him after the draft. You got to trade him
No.
going into the draft, knowing that you're going to get that wide receiver in that draft.
Right. Right.
So
I think he's going to be.
we're under. I don't think we're going to see him move sometime in the next couple of weeks.
If we move on him, it'll be on draft night. There's no
like
doubt.
day one, like day
Day
one, or
one,
like early day two.
Yep, day one or day two. If that's the only, if we don't see him move out on draft day, we'll have him for the rest of the year. Which whatever it is, what it is, I don't care. It's T. Higgins. It's not like it's I'll just say this. Let's just say it's not Trent Irwin. It's T. Higgins. So if we have him for another year, we have him for another year.
Listen, at $21 million, I don't think that it's a bad contract to pay him for 1 year. So I'm good with him if he stays here, plays. I was banging the drum early on about the tag and trade, and the thing is this season also, when you look at it, we talk about the draft. The draft's deep in wide receivers. But once you get into that late third, early fourth round, there is a severe drop off.
Yeah,
there's a good chunk up until midway through the second round. Probably they're going to be starters in the league. Then you're going to get your number 2s and number 3s right behind that, and then it's a drop off. I don't know some of these guys.
And I think, and going back to the Bills and the Texans and that Stefon Diggs trade situation, I think that's why they probably wanted a second in next year's draft, because not only that they wasn't going to get a first, Houston and Buffalo were picking really at the same spot in this year's draft. And there is going to be a run on wide receivers. You can almost guarantee it. Buffalo don't want to be pigeonholed to that. Now we got to draft a wide receiver this year in the first round or in the second round, even though they might still do that. I don't
they're
know
at
what
the
their
end of the
draft board
second
looks like.
round. That's going to be after that drop off.
Both Houston and Buffalo is at the end of the first and second round, and that's the thing that they're like. The thinking is that if Stefon Diggs, blows up this year with the Houston Texans, okay, then we're going to get a late second round pick in 2023 anyways. We might see we might be able to package and trade up next year. This year, it just doesn't look like that's going to be able to happen for them, because again, I'm getting, just based off what you're saying with the receiving class, it's going to be a run, like whether if it's in the beginning, the middle, and if you're picking in that in like the late 20s going to the 30s part, if you're looking to get a wide receiver, it's going to feel like a reach until you get into the second round, and then you got to feel like that you got to take the best available at that point in time. So yeah, it's starting to make sense to me more and more now, even though I feel like that the Bills, understandably so, that they got fleeced in that trade a little bit. But it's starting to make sense to me now. I feel like why they opted to get the trade value that they got when it comes to getting assets in return for Steph Diggs, as opposed to not going for it this year. And plus, the way how they're building their offense is really running through Dalton Kincaid and I don't know, Dawson Knox, James Cook, and Josh Allen anyway. So yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we keep going into these, especially AFC stuff. We're going to cover all your NFL news, but AFC stuff, this is the path that we need to get where we want to go. So we're always going to dive into these guys, especially when they're playoff contender teams, good players and stuff like that. So we will get transitioned here into some Bengals talk and news right after we take a moment to hear from our sponsors. If you have not hit that like, subscribe, or shared us yet, now's a good time to do so while we take this quick break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Runnin Thru the Jungle. I'm your host, Brandon Herriott, with your host, Tim Lyons and Justin Lacey. We have talked enough about the other teams in the NFL and AFC and the Stefon Diggs trade. And let's get into some Bengals news. We've gotten some Bengals visits, the top 30 visits recently that we would kind of want to go into. I'm going to kick it over to you, Tim. We'll start with you on who is your favorite visit so far on top 30 visits that you've seen, and why?
I'm gonna run with Sweat because I think Sweat could be a good addition to the defensive tackle room. He's going to be more of a nose tackle, someone to pair up next to Sheldon Rankins or BJ Hill. Let them get in there and rush, and actually rush the quarterback. He's a big dude. Him and Byron Murphy, they played right next to each other last year. And those were good hole pluggers and also good pass rushers. With Murphy, and then you had Sweat. Sweat's a big dude. I still believe that we're missing that nose tackle, even though the NFL kind of today's defense has gotten away from the nose tackle positions, because they're mostly lining up in the gaps. But I still believe that we need that nose tackle, that run defender.
Somebody to take two blockers off your line so that you can get a linebacker on a running back.
Yeah,
instead of a safety.
Somebody that you can stuff the hole. And I think Mims is that answer, or Sweat is that answer. Excuse me, Sweat is that answer. Yeah, that's I was happy to see that. I didn't see Brock Bowers on that list yet, so I'm kind of wondering if we're even going to go that direction first round. I'm kind of seeing that we're kind of doesn't look like that.
Well, I really think that he's, most boards he's picked to leave before we get down to 18. So my guess is this. My guess is if Brock Bowers is there, we no questions answered, just take him. But I don't think they expect him to be there.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I got my mixed feelings about that, but all right.
T'Vondre Sweat, I think we get in round 2.
We could, yeah.
And I'm gonna cut in front of you here on this one, JC. Justin. Normally I put Justin and Lacey together. That was awesome. I'm gonna cut in front of you here because normally I would kick it right over to you and get your feedback, but I'm gonna stay here because mine's T'Vondre Sweat as well.
Oh,
and before you continue, that was actually going to be one of mine too. So we're in unison with that. But go ahead, continue. Then you can toss it over to me. But go ahead.
Bat 1,000, gentlemen.
Did you see the ESPN feature on him?
I did not.
It really addressed some of the things he went through in college and having issues with school and learning, and he put on a bunch of weight because he got depressed, and he wanted to move back home, and his mom wouldn't let him, and it's a very heartwarming feeling, and him and his mother's relationship was great, and it made me want to root for him.
Yeah. I like that.
And because of the need and because of the story, I really liked it. Now, the one caution I have or concern I have is when you looked at the NFL player review of all 32 teams, we didn't do real well in dietitian and all that kind of stuff. I think we need to make sure we get that stronger and help this young man stay on the right path, because I think he's got some special talent and seems to be a really good guy. And I love the fit, like Tim said, with DJ Reader leaving. I really think we need somebody in there that's going to help against the run. I mean, we can't be 31st in the run because, I think the league would love to have the game plan against the Cincinnati Bengals of taking the air out of the ball. They don't want us to have 80 plays a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I look at it, and that's the reason why I went with Sweat. Justin?
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with all of you with T'Vondre Sweat as well. I think that he is a guy that has quickly become a favorite of mine for somebody that I can just nab as a second-round pick, hopefully, if he's going to be there, or if the Bengals get aggressive and trade up for him. I'm going to also give you an honorable mention too, but before I give you that honorable mention, I'm going to give my little synopsis over T'Vondre Sweat. I feel like that the first and second round pick has the potential to be the first time that the Bengals draft two prospects coming out of the same school on the same position group in a long time. I don't think it's ever happened before. They have a chance at Byron Murphy with the first round, and then the second round, T'Vondre Sweat. And they'll because one of the things that I've learned about Javondre Sweat watching this film a bit is that he's played a number of snaps in the B gap. I believe 57 snaps. That is this gap where you are lining up between the left guard and the left tackle. That's almost like a 3-tech. He's not just a nose tackle, even though he's listed as a nose tackle. I was always worried about his weight size being like you got to motivate him to make sure that he got to play at a smaller weight level. You know, he's like 360. He can be down at 330. You know, I was concerned. I had my reservations about that at first. I'm not going to lie. But then I watched his tape and I'm looking at it as like, man, he is actually one of the sole reasons why Byron Murphy was able to get off as the way he did. And every time I kept watching Byron Murphy, I found my eyes gravitating towards him and like, this is how it happened because you got that guy on the field. And I think that the Bengals are understanding that too. And when he only had 2 sacks in college, so at least last season. But who cares, man? Like Byron Murphy's taking majority of those sacks and those pressures for him because right then and there, you got a guy like Tavondre Sweat that is doing exactly what he set out to do and clogging up the middle. However, I just think that this is just more specialness that can be added to it, that he can become better than what we saw out of DJ Reader potentially. And DJ Reader was one of the best nose tackles in the business. And I think that Tavondre Sweat has a chance to sort of rechange and rebrand the nose tackle position in that way. Now, my honorable mention, we need some tight ends at some point. I like that they went and scheduled a visit with Iowa's tight end Eric Hall. I think I mean, I'm not too familiar with this game, but it is a tight end that they're willing to give a look at because I think that while everybody's hitching on to the Brock Bowers, you know, brigade and stuff, and don't get me wrong, I would love to see Brock Bowers here too. However, I just don't feel like that's going to just happen. Like you guys said, Brandon, specifically you said, like, I think that they're just assuming that he's not going to be there. And if he is there, maybe we pull the trigger or just trusting your evaluations. That's what you need to do because I don't like when we get so hype driven on social media over a prospect and then we want the Bengals to take them. And then when they don't take them, we get mad. We did this with Michael Mayer last year. We don't need to do it with Brock Bowers. Look at some more tight ends. I also like Dallin Holt, I forget his name. He's a tight end too that I'm sure they've had interest in. But another Texas guy, Jadavion Sanders. I don't know if he's on a visit, but he will be a guy that I will welcome to this offense with open arms because he's
you said
slightly
drafted
different.
2 guys from one team. That's who I thought you were going to say, to be honest with you.
That's what I thought too. I was because I wasn't expecting Murphy and Sweat. I was expecting the tight end from Texas.
Yeah.
From Texas.
Dude, the Bengals have a chance at 3 guys from Texas. I think I got 3 fingers in the screen. 3 guys from Texas. And Jatavion Sanders is like a guy that can be a nice little change of pace tight end along with Mike Gesicki. And he can be a long-term investment too. So I mean, I don't think he's scheduled a visit with them yet or anything like that, but Eric Hall is the guy that from Iowa that I did see that they scheduled a visit for.
But we did meet with him in the combine, though, didn't we?
I believe so, and also at the pro day too.
We had a couple of tight ends at the combine, Brock Bowers did have an official visit after the combine. I remember I made the little Brock Bowers Bengals thing. I will say this. One of the things that I really liked about looking down the list of the top 30 visits, lots of big uglies. Offensive tackle, offensive tackle, offensive tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive tackle, defensive tackle. I was pretty excited about that. I'm gonna throw it around. If there's one person, one visit maybe you didn't understand or you didn't like for any reason, I'm gonna let you guys share that. I'm gonna kick it off though, because I'm gonna start with Eric All. I'm very familiar with him. He transferred from Michigan to Iowa his senior year and blew out his knee, and I got a bitter taste in my mouth. The guy turned his back on us. We won a national championship in spite of him. I digress.
All right. Well,
that might be.
Did I change my answer?
No. That might be petty. That's more personal than it is football, Justin. Don't change your answer. You're probably right. Bad taste in my mouth. Tim, who you got over your list that you didn't understand?
You know, there's actually 2 people on my list. The one is Xavier Thomas out of Clemson, defensive end. are we trying to plan for the future here? We could be. Look who we drafted last year in the number 1 round. We could be planning for the future, but kind of don't understand that. But my number one person is the John Anthony out of Ole Miss, a safety. Like we already discussed, we already have 5 safeties in the safety room. Why the hell do we need another one? That doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. Just doesn't add it. It doesn't compute.
And we have veterans.
Mm-hmm.
We have middle prime of your career.
Yep.
We have young. Like, we have them all over the place. And I mean, don't forget, we got the kid coming back off of the ACL injury from Toledo that was playing great in the preseason.
Yep.
I think he'll end up being a good special teams player. Hopefully he returns back from that knee injury well. I mean, I don't understand it either. Safety doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like them having a visit with a quarterback. Like, hey, let's have McCarthy come over and have a visit with the Bengals, even though we don't need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I agree with you.
Justin, anybody stick out on yours on your list that you didn't understand?
As far as like lists that I didn't understand, there's obviously a few of them. I'm not going to reiterate you guys' points and emphasis. Instead, I'll go into this direction. I do love the fact that it was a lot of big uglies, as you mentioned, a lot of tackles and a lot of defensive ends and tackles and stuff like that. I love that. But however, the one guy, whereas I'm glad that the Bengals took a look at him, but I'm not so high on him as a prospect, and maybe I could be dead wrong on him. He's a tackle prospect, and it's Amarius Mims. I just don't know. I just don't know if the Bengals can afford to get it wrong this time, and I'm fearful. I'll just come out and say I'm just fearful that the Bengals may get it wrong by drafting him in pick 18, knowing that there's a guy like Fashanu, Fawaga, Fatanu, or like I said, Byron Murphy or Jerzon Newton. Those guys will probably still be on the board, and yet they'll settle themselves for Amarius Mims to where it just feels like that his potential will be exceeded elsewhere, but just not here yet. Whereas I'm still happy that the Bengals still met with him, but it just really felt like that they're truly going to consider him at pick 18. And that's just got me like, I hope you guys have a plan. That's the
one
only
of
thing I'll
those
say.
things. That's a guy where his measurables are better than his resume, right? He
Facts.
didn't have enough. I'd like to see him have 2 full years of playing in the SEC to kind of really gauge it a little bit more. But
and I gotta actually just say this as well.
It's high risk, high reward is what it is.
Yes, I feel like that. I gotta see more of him play, more so, and so I can kind of like digest what he actually can do. And the Bengals are just not one of those teams that are that I need them to take the risk on with that type of prospect in that type of pick. And that's where I kind of like will shy myself away back from at this time. And like meet with him at the combine, sure. Meet with him on this pro day if you're going to where is he going to Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Go talk to him then if you're going to Georgia's pro day. Sure. Just like JC Latham with Alabama. But you hosting them on a top 30 visit, that shows a little bit more personable. Like you're really considering him as a draft prospect for a pick, whatever it is. And he is a projected first rounder, obviously. Doesn't look like he's going to slide into the second round. We don't know. He might surprise us on draft night. But it just feels like that they are really seriously considering him at pick 18. And that has me worried.
Yeah. I like Troy Fautanu from Washington State.
Yes, I like him too.
But that's a weird one too, because you guys rewind footage and watch me last year. I got pretty less than enamored, I will say, with our left guard position, Cordell Volson. I thought there were sometimes it just like a jailbreak out of there. And this is a guy that played tackle and guard at Washington. So that's an interesting move to me. And he also has that little more of a nasty. So I like that. I like that nastiness,
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. It's like they're doing their homework. They're really bringing the big uglies in. I got nothing. I got no qualms right now. I got nothing to argue about. Just do your homework, figure it out, get them out there. Parting shots, guys. Anything you want to say to the people before we head out of here? Anything you want to bring up, Bengals wise or other? Justin?
I mean, maybe it's just me just spitballing because I just can't wait till draft night so we can just put all this stuff to bed and then we can critique the actual prospects that we take. But if there are any Amarius Mims supporters out there, I do apologize. I don't want to offend anybody on the on the air
It's just Tim.
because I feel like that I really would like him as a prospect, but I just feel like that the Bengals need to think beyond that and like get an absolute, like get an absolute. And I think that we're just in a hunt for a Super Bowl trophy. I say this after every show as parting shots, as final thoughts, and we need to make this pick 18 count. Don't be trying to get too cute, of get thinking that you can see something like a potential with one guy that other people was not going to see. The Bengals don't have a good history of doing that. We saw that with Jackson Carman after we took Jamar Chase the pick before in that round. And then we obviously know the Cedric Boy. He's, the Jake Fishers and all that stuff. I don't want to blame them for the past regime's mistakes, but this recent regime has a little bit of mistakes right then and there themselves too. So just don't get too cute. Find an absolute. If the absolute feels like it is leaning to a direction of a tackle, I just will feel good if it was like a Fawaga or the other guys that have really just enamored everybody at the combine and the pro days and whatnot. Like you see them jump out on tape. I'm just not seeing that right now with Mims, and that can be absolutely wrong about that. And if we do take him at 18, I'm honestly going to support him because he's a Bengal. But it would just be like, I hope he doesn't turn into a pumpkin. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I will say this and kind of to support what you're saying. I don't think our team is in a situation. I don't think the Bengals have the ability to take year after year a player in round one that's a project. Miles Murphy last year, we knew when we got him, he had one move, he had a lot of physical attributes, and I think the haunting part about the Mims pick is it reminds you a lot of that, right? Not a lot of tape, very athletic, great measurables. He may be a Pro Bowler, but it may be 3 years from now. It may be going into that next contract when you see him blossom.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in win now mode. I want our first round draft picks to play. I want our first round, and especially as we're starting to pay the bags to these guys, 55 million here, 30 million there, 20 million there. You got to start getting those rookie contracts to start paying off immediate dividends. You can't sit back and groom somebody for 2 years and then you get 1 or 2 years out of them before they take off.
Yeah,
can't have that.
that's not good business at all. We don't got time to be sitting around knitting blankets waiting for this tackle to develop, and he may not ever pan out. We did that so long with our previous first round picks getting injured during their rookie years and not even seeing them. So they're redshirted throughout their whole rookie season. And then for them coming back the next season and then having a slow decline, the slow development right then and there. I'm done with all of that. Sorry.
Well, with
Tim,
the money we're tying up in other people, we don't have that luxury anymore.
we don't have that luxury anymore. No.
Yeah. Tim, any closing thoughts from you?
I just wanted to add my 2 cents to this. Our right tackle position has been a revolving
I thought
door.
you were going to say, where's the running back?
No.
Okay.
Our revolving door has been the right tackle. Bengals haven't been too good at drafting offensive linemen. It just hasn't been our cup of tea. I don't know if, they're looking at the right tackles or looking at the right, the right guards or whatever, but it just hasn't been our best thing in the draft. One thing I do want to say about Mims, I know Mims has been hurt, his injuries is a concern, and he really didn't play very much, but everybody, all these people after the combine were like, oh, he's got a high ceiling and he could be a future Pro Bowler or whatever, and I do agree with you guys, that why would we take a risk on these what ifs and these and the stuff that we haven't gotten to see because he hasn't been healthy. Look, when he did his 40, he ran a 5.5, I think it was a 5.07 Then he got hurt, and he didn't even show in pro day when he was at the Georgia's pro day either. So, I hope, like this draft is a big draft. There's a lot of guys. This is going to be a deep draft. This is going to be a good draft for every single team. These players are going to either make you become a dynasty, and hopefully you don't reach because you shouldn't be reaching in the first 2 rounds. There's nobody to reach for.
I really, truly believe we have 4 picks in the top 100. I believe that 3 of those need to be impact players.
I agree with you 100%.
And I know that's hard to do. You get over 50% of the draft, you're doing great, right? But I really feel like they need to hit it this year for sure.
Yeah, we do need to hit a home run in 20 days. We'll find out. 20 days.
Can't wait. Right around the corner. Man, I'll be in Cincinnati before you know it. Kicking it down there.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
We're
looking forward to that.
Well, hey guys, thanks for joining us again. We appreciate you rocking with us. Please hit that like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, and you can catch us next week as we are running through the jungle.